Going. Hey, just a reminder that you can check out our live stream today. We are back in our Johannesburg studios, so it's easy for us to actually be found on our live streams. So remember, you can find those on our YouTube page. Our YouTube page is simply titled Channel Africa. If you want to use the handle, just add a 1 after the phrase Channel Africa and you'll find us there. Come and tell us where you are listening to us from the continent and abroad. We want to know where you are. See some people coming in already. Thompson Shunga, Mohammed Shahab Uddin. Thank you guys for joining us on that particular platform. So let us know where you're listening to us from. We always love hearing from you. It's always cool to know that you're listening to us from different parts of the African continent. Well, let's look at today's first subject matter, first conversation. It's a pretty important one because our emotions are things that we think are naturally there. We don't see them as signals. We don't see them as indicators. And most of the time, we just go through our emotions and we think our emotions are not really speaking of the interior world within us. Do you know that you've got like a world inside of you, a world that's indicating how you are projecting the world? And that also is an indication of probably how you're doing health-wise, or how you're doing in terms of your heartbeat rates, or how you're doing in terms of your mindset. So all those emotional indicators are so important, and I don't think we should take them for granted as Africans. So today we're going to be speaking about something very important. It's called an emotional hangover. It's probably a new term for you. Like, you can get hangover. I thought you just get hangover when you had a few beers or maybe a few glasses of wine. No, you can actually get hangover in terms of your emotions. It's described as an aftermath of a powerful emotional experience, whether it comes from a conversations you've had that is unsettling for you. Maybe you're saying goodbye to a partner. Maybe you're a mother going through divorce. Maybe you are a guy who's just gotten a call to say, hey, I'm no longer interested. Maybe it's just an intense argument at work. It's formed by different variations, but sometimes it's also a build-up of stresses that accumulate over a period of time. Well, to speak about an emotional hangover, we're joined by our guest to speak on this one. We have clinical psychologist Lewis Karanja, who's joining us on the line. Lewis, welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, emotional hangover. I mean, when I saw this, I was like, really? You can get a hangover emotionally? Because, it's one thing to have too many beers on a Saturday night, but to feel like, emotionally you are hungover, it's a completely new thing for me. Tell us a little bit about what this is.
Okay, so just a brief. Just like you said, the emotional hangover is like the lingering emotional residue after experiencing something, an emotional event. Probably it can be a traumatic one, even a joyful one, an overwhelming one. So that's why we call it an emotional hangover, because now there is an emotional residue that is now left after an event that has happened. Now, probably like the relationship issue that you mentioned, it can be a wedding, it can be in terms of mourning, probably you've lost someone.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's something that is lingering emotional residue, just like a hangover. Probably you've taken alcohol and probably you have that headache.
Yeah. And we don't like that headache, right? It is not something that feels actually good. And at times, maybe we don't know when we're going through an emotional, overwhelming moment, or a moment that is a residue emotionally. Because let's be honest, as human beings, not just as Africans, generally, we don't read our emotions very well. We're not very in touch with our emotions at times, because we have to go to someone else to tell us what our feelings mean or what our emotions can be interpreted as. So what's going on in your body? What's going on in your mind when you're actually going through an emotional hangover? Maybe you can help us understand this a little bit more.
Okay, so probably I can start with the physical. The physical, probably what you can be able to feel. One will be feeling tired, having low energy. When it comes to the general overview of the body, you feel overexhaustion. Probably you just feel generally tired, drowsy. So that is in terms of the physical, what you will be able to feel. Then probably now when we come to the mental, now to the mental aspect. One thing you can be able to notice is when it comes to the concentration, you'll have difficulty when it comes to concentration. You'll have brain fog. Probably if you're working in a corporate company, you'll find that you'll miss certain information. Probably if you are doing a presentation, you'll find that you're not able to remember certain information. Then the other thing is now when it comes to decision, you'll find that you'll have a challenge coming up with a decision for yourself. Then lastly will be when it comes to sleep. Also, you won't have a healthy sleep, like they usually say. The recommended healthy hours to sleep is 7 to 8 hours, but also 6 is okay. So the sleep will also be affected.
Now, Lewis, let's speak a little bit about why these emotional hangovers happen. In fact, let's speak about how our emotions work, because we experience a variety of emotions every single day, right? Just as we move through the day. But there are just ordinary, everyday emotions, but there are what a lot of people will call big feelings. So usually an emotional hangover happens after these big feelings. So what happens inside of us when you experience big emotional, bouts? So whatever event it is, even if it is a happy event, it is, one that taps into the big feelings that you don't get to feel every day. So what is the process of, your emotions and then getting that emotional hangover?
Okay. So I can start with probably an example of an event, then I can try and explain now in terms of how it now manifests as a emotional hangover. So we can start with a wedding, probably because a wedding is a happy event. So generally everybody is supposed to be happy. So what can manifest easily now as an emotional hangover will be crying easily. Probably you find that you are just crying without any reason, and probably when someone asks you, you tell them that these are happy tears, I don't know what is happening. Another thing, probably now in a different environment, you can find you struggle to probably focus at work or probably in school if you are a student. Find if you went through a previous loss or you had an emotional overwhelming event, probably you had a job interview, you had an exam as a student, you find that when it comes to your focus, you will now start struggling.
Yeah.
Then another one important will be now when you're talking about loss, if you have lost someone. Now as an emotional hangover, you might find avoiding people or isolating yourself. Because people tend to use the words, they're emotionally raw. Because at that particular moment when you have lost someone, your emotions are really, really low. So in terms of you can cry, you think about everything on the negative side.
Yeah. All right, Lewis, we'll continue with some of those key themes there that you're highlighting. And definitely we need to find solutions on dealing with that emotional hangover. We're speaking to clinical psychologist Lewis Karanja on the line there. I see you guys are coming into that live stream. David Chizau. Hello, David Chizau. Thank you for joining us there. Let me shout out Kawunga Nyirenda as well. It's 21 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. Let's take a break.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons danser au son de Haya, que je dédicace à vous tous, chers auditeurs, qui êtes en train de suivre cette émission Mix Vibration. N'oubliez pas, vous pouvez nous suivre à partir de l'application SABC+. Vous choisissez Channel Africa pour suivre l'émission en direct. Nous allons danser au son de Haya.
Annie Kalonji. Tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Zochitika ndi madaphiri kamlondola wa zochitika pena paliponse.
Nduna wazamalonda kumalawi waletsa kampani yopanga shuga ya Irovo yomwe ndi nthambi ya Irovo Sugar Group Limited kuti isiye kutumiza shuga kumaiko akunja. Malingana ndi nduna ya zamalonda Vitumbuko Mumba, izi zithandiza kuti shuga yemwe yakusowa pamsika azipezeka. Ndiye pano ndili ndi George Muhangu amene ali mu mzinda wa Blantyre mu dziko la Malawi. Chimene chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndi chani?
Chomwe chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndichonena kuti panopo ili ngati off season ya makampani a Irovo Sugar Malawi, kunena kuti sakutha kupanga shugayi okwanira chifukwa akukolola. Ndiye akamaliza kukolola pameneno atayambeno sopano kugaya shugayi kuti azipezeka. Chinanso ndichonena kuti ma distributors amene akumakagula shuga kaya ndi ku Irovo kaya ndi kusalima shuga akumagulisa kumaiko akunja ngati Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Mozambique.
Zochitika ndi madaphiri lolemba mpaka lachisanu pa nthawi ya 7 koloko kufikira 8 koloko madzulo pa Channel Africa.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
We're speaking about a very real phenomenon that many of us have experienced but often misunderstand. And we're chatting about an emotional hangover, which is your body's response to a rush of intense feelings and emotions. Whether positive or negative, an emotional hangover can leave us feeling sad, foggy, slow, or maybe even stressed. But we're unpacking this and, of course, how to deal with an emotional hangover with clinical psychologist Lewis Karanja, who continues to join us on the line. Lewis, let's speak a little bit about, if I have a real hangover, an alcohol hangover, the following morning I'm feeling all these, physical and emotional symptoms, and I'll probably take water, I'll hydrate, and, everyone has their own little cure for a hangover. Some people drink raw eggs. I'm not that kind of person. But there are things that we sought to do to take care of the physical feeling, but hopefully also the emotional feeling. So when you have recognized that you're going through an emotional hangover, which first most of us find it hard to, but before the break you told us some of the symptoms if you're feeling an emotional hangover, and when you know you're going through that, what's one of the first things that you can do to try and alleviate this emotional hangover?
Okay. So the first thing you can do is a daily emotional check-in. So by daily emotional check-in, I mean you ask yourself questions. So you can ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And what action can I be able to take at the moment? So probably if you're feeling low, if you're feeling happy, you're not able to explain. Then secondly, I will say you need to visit a psychologist. You need to talk to someone. So it doesn't have to be a psychologist. It can be someone who is close, a support system, probably someone who you have been close with. Also, we're also looking in terms of confidentiality, if they are able to keep whatever you have talked together. Mm-hmm. Then having a healthy routine, like in terms of sleep, you have a certain time that you sleep and a certain time that you wake up, and also regular exercises so that now you can be able to curb like the drowsiness, feeling like the fatigue. Basically, that is what you can do when you first realize it.
Well, Lewis, you spoke about how support is important when you're feeling this emotional hangover. And there's an issue there because the people who are around you, maybe let's say your partner, you just went through this intense emotional thing with them around, and they've seen you or witnessed you go through these intense emotions, whether good or bad. If you've spoken about it and essentially resolved it, one expects, or the people around you expect you to bounce back and, be back on the ball and everything is okay now, so you should be fine. But if you're going through the emotional hangover, the people around you might feel like you're awful, maybe you're mad or angry at them, and they might not really understand why after the event has already taken place and has ended, you're still sort of down in the dumps. So as a person on the outside witnessing someone going through an emotional hangover, how exactly do you offer them that support?
Okay. So one thing that you can be able to do is grounding exercises, because it can help to alleviate the anxiety that they are having. You can use the 5 senses. I usually use the 5. It's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you use those numbers, but in terms of the senses. So you can tell them to name for you 5 things that they can be able to see, 4 things that they can be able to hear, 3 things that they can touch, and now onwards. So that now you can be able to, it's like now you are trying to distract them, but now you want to bring them now to the reality. Probably what is happening with them. I think that is the exercise that you can be able to use now with a person who is now going through emotional hangover.
Okay, this is very informative and important because we don't go through things in a silo, and what we feel usually directly affects those who are around us and those that we speak to and those that care about us. So it's important for them to also understand how to deal with you when you're going through an emotional hangover. Over time, are there strategies that you can implement before some of these emotional hangovers happen? So strategies that you can put in place when you realize that you're about to go through a big emotional event to sort of curb the emotional hangover. So, for example, if you are someone who drinks alcohol, a lot of people now, they take what they call charcoal or activated charcoal before they start drinking, so that even after they've had a wild night, they don't get to experience the hangover. Is that something that we can do like that, where you can sort of, mitigate the emotional hangover before it happens?
Yes. There are strategies that you can be able to use so that now you can mitigate the emotional hangover. One will be journaling, which I'm sure we all know. So it is basically writing down what has happened, how you feel, because now it will act like an emotional release. So having to write each and every day, so journaling. The other thing will be to reset and to recharge. Now this means prioritizing your sleep. Probably if you have not been sleeping well, you dedicate some more hours so that you can sleep more, then hydrating more.
Yeah.
Then having moments like power naps. Probably if you are at work, you can have a power nap of 20 minutes so that now after that you can feel recharged. And then you also need to avoid re-exposure. So probably you don't revisit the triggering situation, or probably the person who is causing the emotional overwhelmness.
All right, those sounds like great strategies, those that we can deal with during the emotional hangover, but strategies we can also put in place just to mitigate an emotional hangover in case it happens. We'll leave it there. I think we've got a lot of great information and we've got to understand this phenomenon a little bit better. Thank you so much for your time, Lewis.
You're welcome.
That is clinical psychologist Lewis Karanja speaking to us about an emotional hangover, what it is, how it works, and of course, how you can deal with it. It's 9:30 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports news.